Divorce. It's a subject that many people are uncomfortable thinking about, let alone talking about. But for this next half hour, divorce is all we're talking about. Welcome to Dealing with Divorce, a program dedicated to the serious subject of divorce. The host of the show is Nan Cohen, divorce consultant. Nan has assembled a panel of various experts who work with families affected by divorce. And now, KQB is pleased to present your host, Nan Cohen.
Nan Cohen!
And welcome to another edition of Dealing with Divorce. Well, I'm so excited to have you in studio with me. I want to, right off the bat, it's Carla, Schiff, Donnelly from the law firm Gentile, Horho, and Avali. Welcome, Carla.
Thank you, Nan.
I am so happy you're here. Yeah, I get to see you all the time, and we're catching these conversations in between. I'm like, oh my God, I have a whole show. I can just pick, ask, and you're here to answer.
And I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy. Let's start with, tell me a little bit about the law firm.
Well, our name is Gentile, Horho, and Avali. We are on Grant Street downtown in Pittsburgh. We also now, for about a year, have had an office in Cranberry Township.
That's kind of nice because you get that in-between period of life where you're going back, am I in Cranberry or am I in town? Am I in Cranberry or am I in town? I think it's fabulous to have the two locations.
It's a little hectic for us, but the clients love it.
And there's definitely a lot going on up there in Cranberry, so
Butler County. And we have clients that come from all over that prefer to come to the Cranberry office because they don't have to deal with the parking downtown.
Yeah, for sure. So you came into the firm how long ago?
I've been at the firm since 2013.
And you came from?
Atlanta, Georgia.
Woohoo! You were practicing down there for a while.
Correct, but I'm originally from New York. That's why you don't detect the southern accent. But
Okay.
I moved to Atlanta in 1992 to attend law school at Emory, and I began practicing family law in 2001. So I practiced it for about 12 years in Atlanta before moving to Pittsburgh.
And so adjusting to Pittsburgh?
Love it here.
There's no place like Pittsburgh.
I couldn't be happier.
And I know you could say that about, from your other cities, but there is something about Pittsburghers that just love Pittsburghers no matter where you go. Friendliest people around.
You know what? They say that the South has the most friendly, polite people, but I think it's Pittsburgh.
I kind of stand up for Pittsburgh on that. Well, we're really glad to have you. And I've had the opportunity to work with you now through the divorce or in the divorce arena, and I just am thrilled beyond words that you're sitting here with me. So I wanted to get into, we got the law firm, and I think I love your approach to your practice, and I'm only as successful as in what I do in the divorce arena because of people like you. And when it comes to divorce, we always look at the complexity things, It's the emotional, and then we get into the business side of divorce. And I wanted to get into, the beginning. People sit there and say to themselves, okay, well, I'm not happy in my marriage. What should I do about it? And years go by. The clock ticks. People get more and more frustrated. They get angry. We go through, a whole host of emotions there. And they really think to themselves, well, there's no way out of this. And sometimes they realize that it's not really the divorce that they wanted. But in searching it out, you've got to get yourself educated.
Exactly.
And I think the key for me in this is understanding what your options are. And I think you do a wonderful job at the firm in working with clients to get the positioning of what the client's needs are and how we can get them met. And it doesn't always necessarily mean, I file papers and you're divorced tomorrow. Oftentimes it's just figuring out, understanding there's strategic plans that sometimes are made. Sometimes the divorce is inevitable, and I say this all the time. I don't preach divorce. I think sometimes that's the easiest way out. I'm not blind to it. Divorce definitely has to happen in certain cases, but I like the fact that you always take the time to look at the whole picture and what's in the best interest of your clients. So I'd like for you to get it from your perspective as to what you see and how you handle it if they're in that beginning stage, just maybe something it's in the back of their mind. What can you bring to the informational side to the client?
Well, to the point you made, I think that divorce is a daunting process. And so people contemplating divorce sometimes feel stuck because they don't know what that process looks like. They don't know, they can't see themselves getting through the process because they really don't know what that process is. And I spoke to a new client yesterday who said, I've been wanting a divorce for a year and I've been feeling trapped. And there was no reason for her to feel trapped except that she didn't have the information she needed. So, what I like to do is get sort of the very, very basic lay of the land so that I can tailor what I tell the client in terms of the process to their case, so they're not, hearing about custody if they don't have children or if there's no custody issue. So I start off with some very basic questions, date of marriage. Are you currently still living together? Do you have children? Do you both work? If, what are the relative incomes of the parties? And, what types of assets do you have? Does somebody own a business? Is there a house? Is the house in joint names? That sort of information. And that bit of information is usually enough for me to sort of get started in telling the client what their rights are and what they need to know about the process. But, first I'll ask them, what's on their mind, because sometimes somebody comes in and that they really have one issue that they're most focused on. Often it's the children. And so that's where we'll start.
Right. And to that point, I sat in a consultation with you a couple weeks ago. We were talking about the difference between, was it more important to file for the divorce or deal with the custody piece? And I think the client was shocked trying to figure out, I don't have to deal with a divorce right now. That's a separate piece, but the custody was more of an issue than the divorce. And you kind of just eased the client into that position, that we were okay to deal with just the custody.
Right. Sometimes you don't want to bite off more than you can chew. And in Pennsylvania, we deal with 3 separate tracks. We have the custody track, the support track, and the divorce track. And not every track needs to start at the same time. In fact, the timing is essential in getting that advice, getting an attorney to go over your situation, to help you make decisions about the timing of those 3 aspects of your case. And it may be that only one aspect needs to move forward at the time, or maybe none. Maybe you're not ready to make the decision, but now you can go back home, and when you're thinking about your decision, you have all this information to consider.
So can I take a myth out of this? I hear this a lot, and I'd love to get your take on it. When I meet with people, and I think that it's inevitable that this divorce is going to happen, when they say they're going to stay there for the children and get to that magical place where all the children are out of the house. What do you, when you sit back in your chair, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I look at it as a being the child of a divorce. My parents did stay together for the children, and they separated when I was a freshman in college. And while I'm glad they did that, at the same time I feel some sad feelings that they remained in a situation that didn't make them happy for a longer period of time and didn't move on with their own lives because of us, because I think we would have been okay.
Right. And I think that a lot of times parents in that situation are kidding themselves. The children know what's going on.
Right. And I was fortunate that I was blindsided by my parents' announcement, and that my parents didn't fight, or it wasn't a contentious atmosphere. But a lot of children are living in toxic, contentious atmospheres, and that's not good for them. And I've heard from a lot of psychologists who say what really is the difference maker is not what your particular custody schedule is, or whether the parents live together or live apart. It's really how the parents handle it. And sometimes people parent better apart, better than they parent together. And sometimes when parties are together, one parent's really doing all the parenting, and the other parent is sort of having their relationship with the children via the other parent. When the parents separate, suddenly both parents often take a major role in parenting their children, and that's good. A lot of children enjoy the fact that, especially with their dads, that they now have a closer relationship with their dad, because their dad is making them breakfast and helping them with their homework and doing things that they maybe weren't doing together. and at the same time, maybe mom is now more involved in their soccer and their activities. I know I'm stereotyping a little bit, but those are the types of things that children do like about it. I'm not saying that children necessarily love the divorce process and love living in two different homes, but it's not all bad.
Right, and I think that's the kind of thing when I work with people and I say to them, they think something magically happens. Okay, so now we survived this and the kids are gone, and so it's going to be easier for them to separate and divorce. And it doesn't. And I think that you give them the clear shots of the view through the window of what it's going to look like. Believe me, I hold up mirrors all the time and try to let them see what it's going to look like. But I think you really do your work to explain to them there's options even working through this now. We don't have to be divorced. We can hang that piece till later, but we can work through this custody thing and maybe make it a better environment for the children.
And and sometimes staying together is an option. Sometimes learning about the divorce process makes you want to go back and rededicate yourself to your marriage. And in that case, I'm happy to give out names of marriage counselors and encourage people. And sometimes people, I don't hear from them for years, and then I get a phone call out of the blue that they did reconcile for a period of time, and they come back, and then there are people I never hear from.
Right. So again, I think it's about getting yourself educated as the biggest thing that we can both keep in telling clients all the time. There's always options. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back with Carla Schiff Donnelly from the law firm Gentile, Jorho, and Avali. You can reach Carla at 412-261-9900. And you can also visit their website. Lots of good information, by the way, on the website. You're doing a great job on the website. It's gha-lawfirm.com. We'll be right back.
Are you thinking your marriage may not be forever? This is Carla Schiff Donnelly, principal at the law firm of Gentile, Jorho, and Avali. Our team of proven, innovative attorneys focusing on family law will help you navigate through the complexities of divorce proceedings, especially those involving high net worth, litigation, and custody. Proven, focused, innovative. That's what we are and what you'll need at this unsettling time. Gentile, Jorho, and Avali. Call me, Carla Schiff Donnelly, at 412-261-9900. Visit us at gha-lawfirm.com.
Are you tired of online dating, not meeting the kind of people you want to socialize with? Hi, it's Nan Cohen and Bill Cardiff. We're the founders of an exciting new concept launching exclusively here in Pittsburgh. It's called Dinner for Eight.
With Nan's background in helping people with divorce and my 20 years experience as a singles lifestyle expert, we have joined forces and are excited to present an innovative social enterprise called Dinner for Eight. Online dating is passé, the bar scene is arbitrary, and life is just too busy. Join Dinner for Eight and enjoy new opportunities to meet new people in casual, comfortable, small group dinner settings at some of Pittsburgh's finest restaurants.
Join Dinner for Eight and become part of the most groundbreaking program for single people in Pittsburgh. Visit our website, dinnerfor8pgh.com, or call us at 412-888-9220. Remember, you'll never know who you'll meet next to you in your dinner seat. That's dinnerfor8pgh.com.
Are you thinking your marriage may not be forever? This is Carla Schiff Donnelly, principal at the law firm of Gentile, Jorho, and Avali. Our team of proven, innovative attorneys focusing on family law will help you navigate through the complexities of divorce proceedings, especially those involving high net worth, litigation, and custody. Proven, focused, innovative. That's what we are and what you'll need at this unsettling time. Gentile, Jorho, and Avali. Call me, Carla Schiff Donnelly, at 412-261-9900. Visit us at gha-lawfirm.com.
And we're back with Carla Schiff Donnelly. I'm so excited you're here in the studio with us. When we talk about divorce, it's a bunch of what ifs. And I know that, attorneys don't have magic wands that they can just fly around and the crystal ball to see everything. But I think being forthcoming with your questions and your concerns really helps out a lot. My number one thing that I get and I'm not the attorney, is, oh my God, Nan, how am I going to pay for things? Oh my God, Nan, where am I going to live? How am I going to do this? And my first thing is breathe. Let's get some, legal counsel on this, and let's see what it really looks like. So here I go. I'll make the call and say, hi, Carla. I need to schedule a consultation, and then we pick it up there. So let's take them through it.
Well, that's where getting that lay of the land in the beginning is helpful. So, if we're talking to a stay-at-home parent and they're worried about, well, if I leave my spouse, does that mean I have to move out of my house? If I stay in the house and they move out, how are the bills going to be paid? Those are a lot of the very, very basic questions we get. You don't have to move out of your house unless the court makes you. There are strategic decisions involved with whether you're going to move out of the house, but you should never move out of the house without first consulting an attorney. Without a divorce case pending, absent there being an abuse PFA issue, the court can't make you move out of your house. So, but let's say you want to move out of your house. It's an untenable situation and you feel like you need to leave. You're the dependent spouse. What do? That's when we talk about filing for support.
What makes you a dependent spouse?
Well, the dependent spouse is, just like it sounds, dependent on the income of the other party. Either they maybe are a stay-at-home parent, or they work part-time, or they work at a much lower paying job than their spouse. And that's not unusual to find situations like that all the time. So there is an entitlement in Pennsylvania to support on an interim basis. First of all, there's child support, but in addition to child support, there is what we call spousal support, which is support that you would receive from your spouse before a divorce is pending when you're living under separate roofs. There's a formula for that, and it's 40% of the difference between your net disposable incomes. If there's child support involved, then it's child support plus 30% of the difference between your net disposable incomes. And for many, it can be a sizable amount of money, which gives them enough money to pay their bills in a separate home. And if there are assets, marital assets that are readily available, sometimes we can either ask for an advance, or if those funds are in joint names, we can talk about whether we should take some of these marital funds on an interim basis to give us some moving or startup costs. Nothing's free, so if you do advance some funds from the joint account, that will count at the end of the day when the assets are divided.
And so how do you achieve these things? Are you often willing to work with the other side, opposing counsel? Let's say there's opposing counsel on there. Are we always into the court system, or are we trying to settle cases on the front end of it? I'd like you to get into a little bit of that.
Well, with support, we like to file for support, because when we file for support, we preserve the retroactivity of the support. So you only get support back to the time that you file for support. If there's already an attorney on the other side and we can have a discussion, sometimes we can, short of filing for support, we can in writing agree to preserve that retroactivity date so that we're not necessarily thrust into the court system. But most support cases we do file, and then we're given a conference date. But many of those cases settle between the time that we file and the time of the conference date, and we end up entering a support order, but it's a support order that everybody has agreed upon.
Right, and on that timeline, people don't get that. They just don't walk into your office today, think they're going to file, and they're going to have a check tomorrow.
Absolutely not. That is one of the trickiest timing issues that we have in divorce cases. So when you file for support, you do get support retroactive. So whatever the day it is, let's say it's September 15th is the day that you file for support. Your support conference, in all likelihood, isn't going to be till sometime in mid-October. Your first support payment will be due then on November 1st, the first day of the first month after your support conference. However, you're not getting a check on November 1st. That is when the system will charge your spouse for support. Your spouse then has till the end of November to make that payment. oftentimes there's a wage attachment where the money will come out of your spouse's paycheck. The company that your spouse works for has 45 days to put that wage attachment into effect. Now, your spouse still has to make the payment. They can't say, well, I didn't make the payment because my company didn't attach the wages.
Right.
They have that responsibility. But again, they're not considered late until it's at the end of November. So it's possible that you will not be getting your first support until the very early days of December, if not late November. So there's time that you're going to need some sort of cushion to get you through that time period. And that's something that we talk through with the client in terms of what is the plan. And maybe the plan isn't to move out until December 1st. So maybe you file for support in anticipation of moving out, but you don't actually move out until December 1st. Now, remember I said it's retroactive to September 15th. So what happens to all the payments that have accrued between September 15th and November 1st? That is called arrears. And that you generally don't get in a lump sum. You're usually going to get about 10% of it. So if $4,000 in arrears have accrued, every month you're going to get an additional $400 until those arrears are paid off.
Right.
We try to negotiate getting those arrears paid off as early as possible, but as a practical matter, the court's usually not going to make somebody pay more than 10% on arrears until those arrears are paid in full.
And sometimes, I think the uniqueness about you as you look at the whole picture, not that we want somebody to go without that money for that time frame, but I think you have a real nice way of going after the money to make sure that your client is settled into some form of a life where money's flowing, and in that details working with the other side.
Right.
And you have a great knack with that.
Well, thank you. And I think that it's important to realize that you may not be high and dry during that time, because if your spouse does give you money during that time, they get credit for it. So let's say $4,000 in arrears have accrued, but in the meantime, your spouse has paid your first month's rent, or they've paid for your insurance or something else that they've paid for on your behalf. They're going to get credit so that their arrears are going to be smaller or even down to nothing. And that's actually the better situation when we can work with the other side, so there aren't going to be a whole lot of arrears. Because if you have a lot of arrears, it's going to take such a long time to be made whole. Getting that money on the front end, making sure your spouse is getting credit for it, is really win-win for both sides.
And I often hear this, and I'll say, well, we've got to get some of the back history. What are the bank accounts? Where's the money going? What do you have access to? And a lot of times we hear nothing. Nan, I can't get you that. I can't do this. I can't do that. Just breathe, because the system is in place that you're able to get all that paperwork.
Right. So when you file for support, and if your spouse is, especially if they're a W-2 employee, there's going to be a notice sent out to their employer requiring their employer to send the information to the court. So if for some reason we were not able to get the information before the support conference, usually that information is sitting there at the support conference. Otherwise, parties are required to bring that information to the support conference. If we have a complex situation, we can ask the court to do what's called declaring the case complex, to give us discovery rights, the right to obtain information directly from the other party or from their employer if they're not being forthcoming.
Right. So there's, again, this is all part about getting educated and knowing how you have to make those questions that just roll around their minds. Sometimes they're larger than life with the client, right?
Right.
And the answers are so simple.
And the answers are so reassuring. If you're entitled to support, you're going to get it.
Right.
And if your spouse isn't going to cooperate with giving you information, we are going to get it. We're either going to get it the hard way or we're going to get it the easy way. That's the only question, but we are going to get the information, and you are going to get your support.
I absolutely loved when we came into the studio today, you said you had a consultation yesterday, and the first question the client asked you was,
how many of your cases settle?
Which is huge. Kudos to the client. So go ahead.
Yeah, it's a great question because finding the right attorney for
Right.
you is difficult, and that's an important thing to know before you're going to work with an attorney is how open they are to settling the cases. But what I said to her was, I do settle about 95% of my cases, but in a way, the more important question is, when do I settle my cases? I try not to. Of course, it takes two to tangle, but try not to settle the cases on the courthouse steps. If you're settling your case on the first day of trial, you have already spent so much money on trial preparation. You have probably gone through a deposition. Your anxiety is probably at the highest possible level. If we can get your case settled before any of that occurs, it's the best interest of everybody involved. Because if you're spending that money, your spouse is spending that money too. Money that could be used to be paying you, money that could be used to sending your kids to college. So really, settlement is win-win, and settling early is always best. Not always possible, but best.
And when it comes to me getting involved in a case, I always want to look for that. And that's why I work with the people that I know can get the job done. Because if I can work on the financial piece and know that you're not battling that out. Listen, there's cases that are inevitable that's where they're going to end up, in the courthouse steps going right through the door. But if we have the options of reasonable people realizing, I don't want to spend all this, what's going to come out of it at the end of the day? These are the people that I want to work with.
Right,
So-
and keeping an open mind is important. If you go into the process saying, I'm never going to do this, I'm never going to do that, you may find yourself in the courthouse.
Well, and again, it's that if you think you're going to go to the courthouse and win, you're going to get a big surprise and learning. It's game over, because you never know how that's going to work.
Correct. There's no slam dunks in the courthouse.
No. I just want to make sure that, your consultation is as thorough as it can be. You take the time, you breathe with the client, we start to feel what the client's needs are. And I think that that's a huge piece in understanding what you have to work with. And consultations, they can reach out, call you at the office, get
Correct.
scheduled.
Correct. And so I do charge for my consultations because they're jam-packed with information. A client should walk out of a consultation with all the information, all their questions answered, and a game plan.
And that's the piece that I love. I have yet to have one say that you didn't give everything that you could possibly give with that education side on it. And they actually, what you don't see is when I walk out of the office with them, as we're walking down towards the elevator, they're breathing, and that to me is just what we need to get to. I'm telling you, if you're in this phase and with the information that Carla has presented today, take the time. If you're even questioning anything about the divorce process, reach out to Carla. You can reach her at 412-261-9900. You can visit her on the website at gha-lawfirm.com. Carla's going to be back with me in just a couple weeks. We're going to focus on some focus shows, some topic-driven discussion. Carla, thanks for coming into the studio.
It was a pleasure.
Reach out to Carla Donnelly at Gentile, Horho, and Avali.